Well, this is kind of funny. Here it is, January 8th. Oh my goodness, 2025. Yes, yesterday I did a video. Is this my last video? Perhaps. Nope. I realize that some people do like these. I heard about that. And I realize maybe that they help me coalesce, put together my own thoughts on a subject. And because I'm not talking so much, I might tell a story on mine, but I'm really giving the quotes of the great gurus, that's where the knowledge is. It's not me, it's them. And by coalescing my thoughts, it tends to allow me to go on to a new step afterwards. So in a way, I kind of get a little hung up. I do a video and then I'm off to something else. So maybe it's helping me more than anybody. But I do enjoy them. So here's another one. I also want to say everybody contributes to these. These aren't mine in any way. I know the people I talk to have helped. They throw something out and I just go, wow. The great Swami out of New York, Sarva Priyananda. I hear from my friend some quotes and they hit me and away I go and I do another video. So we're all contributing. And all of us then, because all is one, all is this one consciousness, we're all contributing to a betterment. And you'll see how that comment ties in. Now, what is this all going to be about? I guess you could say it's all about Bhakti Yoga, which is self-realization through love, worship, devotion. But it's also a little bit about how one can see a truth but not having internalized it, not having gained realization. So this is one, and it's a little bit of my story of studying these various books or reading them. How many times I've gone over it. Sometimes I just open it and I read something and go, wow, there it is. I was going to title this Really, Really? From the great SpongeBob SquarePants when I used to watch it with the kids. But it's great because I used to read these and I'd hear a story or some aspect of India's culture in the 1800s and it's like I knew there was truth there, but I'd say, really, really? And there's another quote from the movie Dune where the main character is kind of going through an epiphany and he just kind of looks and says, I see the truth in it. So there's a point of really, really, and then seeing the truth in it. And I was going to title it that. I don't know what it's going to be called. So you just never know. Life's like a box of chocolate. You just never know what you're going to get. And you never know exactly where a truth is going to come out. So this one's been many years looking at this and practicing my meditation daily and watching what really creates that lifelong heartfelt realization and change. So let me start by giving this quote, because this was a really, really quote. And again, this was from the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and I read this. I'm almost embarrassed to say I read it a couple times because I didn't. I guess I looked at the words. But there's a great quote. And this was a really, really quote, and this was only last week. And it says about spirituality, it's page 69 in the introduction. And so it's actually the writing about Ramakrishna, and this is one of his Swamis, Swami Nikalananda. I hope I pronounced that correctly. It's about 90-page introduction. You know, these folks, these Swamis, are such talented writers. It astonishes me. But he's writing about Ramakrishna. And it says, about spirituality in general, the following were his conclusions. First, he was firmly convinced that all religions are true. What a remarkable statement, that every doctrinal system represents a path to God. He had followed all the main paths and all led him to the same goal. So we get back to what I think is the most important statement of all that attracted me to Vedanta Hinduism. Many paths, same God, same consciousness, same truth. And it talks about in these various books how he practiced, and he basically let go of all of his Hinduism and practiced Christianity for a year or two and the Muslim faith for a year or two and absolutely loved them, and they all led to the same end. An extraordinary statement. He had followed all the main paths and they all led to the same goal. Now, this is the line that I'm bringing up. He was the first religious prophet recorded in history to preach the harmony of all religions. I should say recorded, because I'm kind of a wild here. I'm going to correct it right now. Recorded in history to preach the harmony of all religions. I will say something on that. I believe that the origin of Christianity, the origin of many of these religions, Buddhism, probably did speak of the harmony of all and the goal of all. Because, in fact, if you look at, there's a great argument in 2 videos ago, and I invite you to look at it. It's called One God for All, How Can This Be? And it basically describes that we're all of these paths are headed towards the infinite consciousness. And that creates, and from there comes the religions, and so ultimately they all have a similar and an all is one end. And that's not the point of this, to discuss that. It's just to say, I think it might be, to follow this, he was the first religion recorded in history. And I don't know what, I know a lot of the stuff I've looked at with Buddhism, a lot was not recorded. And they just didn't have the ability and the technology to record things, whereas Ramakrishna was recent. So that was a really, why am I bringing that up? Because of this concept of bhakti, love, worship, yoga. And I want to present that I believe, and I see it all as a oneness and a similarity, but I'm going to talk about it in a different way. So let me take this one down. And let me bring up, this is something I've gone over in many of the videos. And there are 4 main paths in Hinduism that are discussed very openly, very clearly. And it's funny, I was just reading about that this morning as I put this outline together. And they all tend to crisscross and they all work together. In fact, that bottom one called Raja Yoga, one of the websites said it incorporates the other 4 or the other 3, and then one of them said, well, it's actually just formalized meditation. I mean, who knows? I think it's very clear, though, the following. It starts at the top. Yoga, we're not using the westernized, go to your place and practice yoga. I'm talking about what it says here. It's derived from the Sanskrit root, yuj, is that Y-U-J, I believe, meaning to yoke or to unite. So you have 2 cows and you're going to furrow the field, is that the correct words? And you unite them, you pull them together. That's yoke. And yoga, we're trying, it says, the practice aims to create union between body, mind, spirit, as well as between, and this is how I'm looking at it now, individual self and universal consciousness. It's very important. So sometimes we use the word Atman for spirit or individual self, and we use the word Brahman for universal consciousness, or how about God? So as those all merge into the one undifferentiated consciousness, that's yoga. And the path to that, there they are. And we see this a lot, and so I use this word Bhakti Yoga, and that's the path of devotion. I've also read it as the path of love, the path of worship. And just recently I've understood more of what that means. In fact, the other day I was meditating, I said, well, I keep saying this, the path of worship or love, and I went, what does that mean? How do you meditate on that? Something for everybody to sort out. But for example, this one article or one website said to serve others and to go out and help others, that is a form of worship because you're helping the all. You're improving the all, and that is actually one of the that's why service and serving others is so powerful. It takes your attention off self, the little less self, which is what we're trying to do, is give up little less self and gain the bigger S self, self-realization, God, consciousness. Wow, I'm getting into this one. Jnana Yoga is the path of knowledge, and why do I bring that one up? Well, let's just go. Karma Yoga is the path of action. It's the whole idea that it's fabulous. It's in the Bhagavad Gita extensively. That through work, you can actually gain self-realization. And then there's Raja Yoga. Now, Bhakti Yoga and Jnana, the first 2, are kind of it seems to me, what I read about the most, even though the first third of the Bhagavad Gita is on karma yoga to a degree. But Bhakti Yoga through love, and this is one of the great realizations I had, that if you practice that, you actually are going to gain knowledge. In the same way that if you practice more extensively jnana yoga, that you will probably gain this great love of consciousness, God. In other words, they all kind of intermix, and I guess everybody has to sort out their path. And this is a bit of a story of what happened to me there was so much really in Vedanta Hinduism. And in fact, even in Buddhism, there was an interesting line I remember once where they talked about no God, no self, and all of this. But then there's a lot of paths, from what I understand, in Buddhism where they do talk about God. So a lot of it has to do with definitions, and a lot of it has to do what path you're on and what path works for you. But a lot of this is me kind of recounting the really, and then the full realization and how powerful this something has become. And that maybe it's through the meditation that I've uncovered, I mean, one of the greatest coverings to truth and to God is ego. Maybe it is, I can't say it's but boy, the ego and the little s self, boy, we see it everywhere these days. I don't want to get into a discussion of that, and I had a no best and an ego that was the monster of all monsters. So I had to get through a lot of that. I've even apologized in some of my videos. I'm sorry if I offended anybody. I thought I was above, in a way, I thought I was above devotion, worship, and bhakti yoga. And now I am the exact opposite. I see that it's not because I read it, it's because I saw it in life and in meditation, how beautiful that is and how it does lead to self-realization. And I can only describe it that if you're thinking of the bigger picture, call it God or consciousness, for me, sometimes it's consciousness, sometimes it's the great goddess Sri Lakshmi, sometimes it's Buddha, sometimes it's Ramakrishna. To me, they're all as one, but it takes the attention off the little s self. So the more you're looking at that, or sometimes it's, as the great Buddha said, wishing others to feel joy. If you can actually meditate on that, others having joy, others moving, succeeding in life, or doing whatever it is that they make happy. That's in the four immeasurables. And so you start seeing, again, all these religions start working together, because the more our attention goes off self, the better off we are. So there's an interesting, I have to bring this one up because it kind of blew my mind. Anyway, there's the paths. And this came about just a couple days ago in college football. Life's like a box of chocolate. You just never know what you're going to get. You never know where you're going to get a realization. So here I'm watching this football game. Notre Dame, I can't even remember who they played. I think it was Georgia. And their quarterback was fabulous. His name's Riley Leonard. Didn't know anything about him, and I looked him up. And for whatever reason, this website popped up talking about him. And I thought this quote was unbelievable. He's at Notre Dame, and he's a devout Christian. And he said, when I go to bed at night, I'm not thinking how many touchdown passes did I throw, did we win or lose. I'm thinking, did I better my relationship with Jesus Christ? Did I treat my girlfriend with respect? Did I call my parents? Now, I thought that was extraordinary. Now, 20 years ago, I would have laughed. My no best attitude would have laughed. Now, I just thought that was beautiful, because he's selfless. And humility and being selfless is a path to self-realization. Whether you want to call it God, consciousness, self-realization, he's saying a path to Jesus. Well, to me, it's all the same. I thought this was extraordinary. And it immediately flipped in my mind. I just put a little note down here. Did I move closer to God, to consciousness, to self-realization? And I even one more step further. I think this now almost on a few hours, every few hours? Did I help others move closer? It takes your attention off self. That's always good. Boy. And I realized that a lot of my meditation of the past was all about me. Am I getting better? Am I feeling better? Well, you know what? Every time I thought about those things, I got worse. And every time in meditation, I think about the attributes of Sri Lakshmi, the attributes of Ramakrishna, Buddha. I feel better. And I finally realized a lot of it has to do with this. Did I treat my family, friends, and the folks around me correctly or right? Do I do my household duties? This is service in my mind. I've defined it for me. Have I taken care of the financials? Did I take care of my home? Have I helped others if called upon? The idea that I have to go out and force myself on, no. If somebody comes to me, did I help? Did I make a donation? I'm sure there's more ways I can serve. I think I mentioned I have a friend, a devout Christian, who I just think is a wonderful man. And he goes to Indonesia and provides free dentistry to the tribesmen in the mountains. For one, that'd be scary. And two, how do you do that? But it's just an extraordinary service. Now I understand his faith. I just think it's fabulous. So you never quite know, but here's a perfect example of Bhakti Yoga, which I see Christianity to be so much Bhakti Yoga, love and worship. 10 years ago when I first started reading these things, it was a lot of really, really, is that right? Now I see the truth in it from the movie Dune. So another thing I think that really held me back is that for 50 years, my paths were the path of jnana yoga, the path of knowledge. And I really see in the books, let me take this off and go back to these books, that, where the great Ramakrishna is really presenting that Bhakti Yoga is the easiest path. I read it, I had a lot of really, really, but now I completely see it. I remember George Harrison in a video, now that I think about it, when I first started looking at this, he said the exact same thing, and I'm not trying to equate myself with him or say, brother, we have the same thoughts. I'm just saying I remember thinking that's really interesting that initially he was more jnana knowledge, and then he fell in love with Bhakti Yoga. Yeah. So, and I believe he was Vedanta, Hinduism. But don't quote me on those things. Go read it yourself. Go figure it out yourself. But one of the things I realized that was a barrier is that jnana yoga was my first steps. Now I value it, but I really love Bhakti Yoga. But I realized, and it almost doesn't make sense, but it's the truth, that if you practice the worship and love, you'll gain the knowledge of spirituality and the universe also. So you're not giving up one for the other, you're getting it all. And I think I'll end it with a fascinating, I wish I could find these quotes, but the great Ramakrishna in his book had a couple, and these were other points where I said, really, really? I knew they were true, but it hadn't really been realized. And he was talking about a great yogi that would go to one of the little areas at the great Dakshineshwar temple, where Ramakrishna was in India, and he would meditate on one thing only, and that was Lord Rama. And when he would come out with such great focus on one, he would then come out and just see beauty and love everywhere. And I remember thinking, and paraphrasing it, but that's what I got from this, reading it. I wish I could find the quote. And I thought, what a beautiful thing. Now, doesn't that mean I'm giving up this or that, or what about this, and am I giving up the world? But you know, I get it now. I get the beauty in all of that. And in the same way, he talked about, and again, paraphrasing, I can't find it, but jnana yoga, I don't even want to get into that. I just think Bhakti Yoga creates more love of the world, more love of all, because God is all. There isn't really, I remember once it was argued kind of, it's almost like there's the material universe and then there's spirit. No, all is one. And through Bhakti Yoga, you end up more with a love for all and a oneness with all, including the physical universe, if you want to define Maya that way. And I think that's really, really beautiful. I'm not saying everybody should be Bhakti Yoga. I'm saying in these books, it's fascinating to see that. And as one figures out their path, yeah, who knows? And I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying that's what I discovered. So I hope this helps. I think my video yesterday was leading to this one, is maybe a better way to put it. Okay.